Throughout history, most murder cases have been uncovered and resolved only when the victim's body was found. A body serves as the ultimate piece of evidence to bring a case to its conclusion. However, not all cases are fortunate enough to uncover the victim's remains, and it becomes significantly more challenging to apprehend the perpetrator in such situations. Yet, over 25 years ago, Taiwan tried a case that was considered extraordinary in the country's judicial history. In 2001, amid Taiwan's rapid development, a remarkable case unfolded. Zhang Jinghua, a talented private tutor with a master's degree from the UK, returned to Taiwan at the age of 40. She rented an apartment in Taipei's Da'an district and taught English and piano lessons throughout the week. Many of her friends mistakenly thought Jinghua was working so hard because she needed money. In reality, Jinghua came from a wealthy family, enjoying the privileges of an aristocratic upbringing. Her tireless work ethic stemmed purely from her desire to utilize her talents and bring joy to her life. In terms of appearance, Jinghua had a sweet and charming beauty. While not striking, her elegance and warmth drew attention wherever she went. With her outgoing and lively personality, she had a wide circle of friends and a love for dancing at social events. Since returning to Taiwan, Jinghua was frequently pursued by admirers, with friends eagerly playing matchmaker for her. Life was peaceful and fulfilling for Jinghua until one fateful day. Taipei's Da'an District Police Department, June 14, 2001. During the afternoon shift, the police received an alarming phone call reporting that a woman named Jinghua had disappeared. The caller, Qi, who was Jinghua's boyfriend, nervously described the situation. He explained that a few days earlier, after leaving Jinghua's home in the morning, he had texted her later that day but received no response. Initially, Qi assumed Jinghua might have stepped out briefly, but when she didn't return his calls either, he grew increasingly concerned. Qi contacted Jinghua's family, friends, and even her students, but no one had seen or heard from her. This was highly unusual for Jinghua, a social individual who regularly stayed in touch with those around her. Feeling that something was amiss, Qi decided to visit Jinghua's home the following day to check on her. Despite ringing the doorbell repeatedly, there was no answer. He then called a locksmith, but the locks on Jinghua's door were unusually complex, and even the locksmith couldn't get them open. Qi told the police, "I remember being overwhelmed with panic at that moment, thinking, what if Jinghua had an accident inside the house?" That same night, Qi contacted rescue services to help him access Jinghua's home using a ladder truck to enter through a window. Once inside, the rescue team opened the door, allowing Qi and Jinghua's family to search the house. To their surprise, Jinghua was nowhere to be found. A quick inspection of the apartment revealed nothing suspicious. The living room was neatly arranged with no signs of a struggle. In the master bedroom, everything appeared normal. The clothes on the bed were folded neatly, as if Jinghua had simply stepped out and hadn't returned. However, when Qi entered the ensuite bathroom in the master bedroom to inspect, he didn't immediately notice anything glaringly unusual, but had an uneasy feeling that something was off. Upon closer inspection, he realized a few items were missing: a shower curtain, the rod above the bathtub, and 2 large bath towels that typically covered the floor. At first, this didn't seem too suspicious. Perhaps Jinghua had simply decided to redecorate the bathroom. Yet, as he looked more carefully, Qi noticed some inexplicable additions in the bathroom: a bottle of bottled water and an electric fan, which had always been kept in the bedroom. While the bottled water could be explained, why would anyone place an electric fan in the bathroom? The third strange detail Qi observed was Jinghua's favorite pair of casual shoes, neatly placed where they usually were. He wondered, did she go out without taking her favorite shoes? Faced with these peculiar details, Qi decided to report Jinghua's disappearance to the Da'an District Police Department. When officers and the criminal investigation team arrived at the scene, they too felt that something wasn't right and requested forensic investigators to collect evidence at the apartment. As expected, the forensic investigators, experts in analyzing crime scenes, quickly uncovered critical evidence that neither Jinghua's family nor her boyfriend had noticed. This became a pivotal moment in uncovering the truth. The bathtub and sink in Jinghua's bathroom were a chestnut color, somewhat similar to the hue of dried blood. Because of this, her family hadn't noticed anything unusual. However, forensic experts detected faint discolorations on these surfaces, which to their trained eyes immediately stood out as traces of blood that had been cleaned. Without hesitation, the forensic team secured the bathroom and began collecting evidence by spraying luminol, a specialized chemical, over every surface. Moments later, as expected, the luminol revealed blood traces along the grout of the bathtub, beneath the sink, and even under the door frame. Upon completing their analysis, the forensic team made a startling conclusion. In this bathroom, which was less than 21 square feet in size, there were hundreds of blood stains. Based on this finding, police speculated that Jinghua might have been attacked and lost a significant amount of blood in the bathroom. The clean appearance of the space suggested that the perpetrator had attempted to thoroughly clean it to cover up the crime. Still, speculation alone wasn't enough to solve the case. To confirm their suspicions, the police sent the blood samples for DNA testing to determine the identity of the victim. When the results came back, forensic analysts confirmed that the blood belonged to Zhang Jinghua. Additionally, investigators found a right palm print and a right footprint near the bathroom door that did not belong to Jinghua. Based on their size, the forensic team concluded they were left by an adult male. Realizing Zhang Jinghua was likely in grave danger, the police immediately launched an investigation to locate her. Drawing from Qi's testimony, they reviewed the details and noticed an unsettling pattern. While certain items, such as the shower curtain, large bath towels, and other objects, had disappeared, other unusual items, like the electric fan and bottled water, had been added to the bathroom. What could this mean? Xi Songshan, director of the Forensic Center at the Taipei City Police Department and a key forensic expert in this case, stated, "Since there were traces of blood throughout the scene, but they had been cleaned, it's possible the perpetrator became hot and thirsty from the exhausting effort of scrubbing the bathroom and brought in water and a fan. Additionally, the fan might have been used to dry the bathroom after cleaning the blood." However, these suspicious details merely drew the attention of investigators. They were not direct evidence tied to Jinghua's case. The central focus remained on the bloodstains discovered by the forensic team. Specifically, investigators collected 107 bloodstains from Jinghua's home. Yet, because all the stains had been wiped repeatedly, they couldn't determine the amount of blood lost or whether Jinghua was still alive. If by some chance she was still alive, the police were certain Jinghua was in grave danger. To expedite efforts to locate her, authorities urged Jinghua's family and friends to come forward with any relevant information. On the other hand, if the worst-case scenario had occurred and Jinghua was deceased, the police knew they needed to find her body and bring the perpetrator to justice. The investigation continued to focus on the only solid lead at the time, Jinghua's home. Upon a second thorough inspection, the police discovered key details. First, there were no signs of struggle in the house, and neither the doors nor windows showed signs of forced entry. This led investigators to conclude that the perpetrator was someone Jinghua knew, someone she trusted enough to let into her home. Second, the home appeared to be the primary crime scene. Based on the items left behind in the bathroom, investigators deduced that the perpetrator likely harmed Jinghua in the master bedroom before dragging her into the bathroom and cleaning up the scene. The standing fan was likely used to dry the area, and the large bottled water was consumed by the perpetrator during the process. The missing shower curtain was possibly used to wrap Jinghua's body, her fate still uncertain. Third, the footprints found near the bathroom door were confirmed to belong to an adult male. Armed with these three pieces of evidence, the police began investigating Jinghua's acquaintances, eliminating suspects one by one. From interviews with Jinghua's friends, a surprising detail emerged. Despite her modest appearance, Jinghua owned multiple properties and had savings amounting to tens of millions of new Taiwan dollars. Two of her ex-boyfriends had pursued her for her wealth, but ultimately broke up with her due to personal debts that she refused to pay off. This raised the possibility that one of her ex-boyfriends might have killed her for financial gain. In addition to tracking down Jinghua's former partners, the police began scrutinizing her recent financial transactions to determine whether her accounts had been accessed or funds stolen. Their efforts paid off. At 1:16 p.m. on the fifth day after Jinghua's disappearance, a major breakthrough occurred. The banking system flagged a significant withdrawal from Jinghua's account. Police immediately retrieved surveillance footage and discovered the person withdrawing the money was a short-haired middle-aged woman acting suspiciously. Her name was Li Mai. With time running out and Jinghua's safety growing increasingly uncertain, the police wasted no time and immediately sought out Li Mai. Unexpectedly, the woman, Li Mai, showed no fear when confronted by the authorities. She calmly told the police, "My brother asked me to withdraw money from the ATM. He just said it was for a business matter, so I didn't question it." The police were skeptical of her statement, but what she said next made them believe she might truly be unaware of the crime. When asked about her brother's whereabouts, Li Mai revealed that her brother, Li Zhengwei, lived in Beijing, China, where he managed a household goods manufacturing factory. Upon further investigation, the police identified her brother, Li Zhengwei, as the primary suspect. Through Jinghua's acquaintances, they learned that 2 years earlier, Zheng Wei and Jinghua had been introduced by a mutual friend and became friends. However, their relationship didn't develop romantically due to differences in compatibility. When the police asked how Zheng Wei traveled while in Taiwan, Li Mai admitted without hesitation, "He used my car, of course. He always borrowed my private car whenever he visited Taipei." This testimony provided a critical breakthrough in the investigation. The police suspected that Zheng Wei might have attacked Jinghua, placed her in the car, and transported her elsewhere. They immediately planned to collect evidence from Li Mai's vehicle. The police invited Li Mai to the station for further questioning. Learning that she had driven the same car her brother had borrowed to the station that day, and with her consent, the forensic team began examining the car in the basement parking lot of the police station, recording the entire process on video. Li Mai was present to witness the investigation, but why did the police deliberately involve Zheng Wei's sister in the car inspection process? The reason was that, given the limited evidence in the case, Li Mai was a critical witness. If she wasn't present during the examination, the perpetrator could later accuse the police of planting evidence. This approach ensured the credibility of any findings. The search for clues in the car began. First, forensic investigators discovered bloodstains beneath the woven bamboo seat covers on the driver's and rear seats, seeping through the gaps in the bamboo strips. While significant, these stains only proved that Jinghua had been injured while in the car. They didn't conclusively establish what Zheng Wei had done to her. Next, when investigators opened the trunk, the first thing they saw was a sunshade with bloodstains on it. Lifting the sunshade, they found more bloodstains on the bottom liner. Intrigued by these findings, the forensic team removed the trunk's floor mat to assess the extent of the bloodstains. Shockingly, even the car's metal floor was marked with distinct red streaks. But could this evidence alone confirm that the car had been used to transport Jinghua's body? Forensic expert Xi Songshan, who had years of experience studying blood patterns, noted, "If the victim had merely been injured and restrained in the trunk, the blood wouldn't have penetrated through so many layers. The amount of blood required to seep through multiple surfaces like this would have to exceed at least 10 milliliters. Based on the blood evidence found at Jinghua's home and in the car, the forensic team estimated that if the blood belonged to Jinghua, it strongly suggested she had been murdered." They quickly submitted a formal proposal to the police authority to escalate the case to a homicide investigation. Although the police were certain that Jinghua was in grave danger, and forensic experts strongly suspected she was likely deceased, they had yet to locate her, whether alive or as a lifeless body. Furthermore, there were many unanswered questions that only Li Zhengwei could clarify. The police asked his sister, Li Mai, to contact him and urge him to fly from China to Taiwan. But 3 months passed, and Zheng Wei made no appearance in Taiwan. He likely realized that doing so would amount to surrendering himself. Anxious to find Jinghua, and concerned that allowing Zheng Wei to remain free might make the case harder to solve, the police devised a bold plan. They charged his sister, Li Mai, with using her personal car in connection with Jinghua's disappearance, bringing her to court. Surprisingly, this tactic worked. It seemed that Zheng Wei, worried for his sister and confident that the police would never find Jinghua's body, decided to return to Taiwan. On September 12, 2001, Zheng Wei arrogantly walked into the Taipei City Police Department, accompanied by his lawyer. What he didn't anticipate was that the police had meticulously prepared their case and were waiting for his return. During the interrogation, when asked about his relationship with Jinghua, Zheng Wei admitted that after divorcing his ex-wife 2 years earlier, he had met Jinghua through mutual friends. However, he claimed that they didn't maintain contact and that he only learned she had a new boyfriend shortly before the incident. When questioned about why he had taken Jinghua's ATM and credit cards and handed them to his sister, Zheng Wei quickly argued that Jinghua had willingly given him the cards because she wanted to invest in a company he had recently established in China. According to police investigations, on the night Jinghua disappeared, specifically in the early hours of June 14, 2001, Zheng Wei was seen driving to Jinshan District in New Taipei City, Taiwan. Investigators believe this might be where Jinghua's body had been discarded. The police asked him directly, "Why did you go to Jinshan in the middle of the night on June 14th?" Zheng Wei replied that he was planning to visit a friend. When asked to identify the friend, he confidently provided a name, and this person indeed resided in Jinshan. However, when the police interviewed this friend, the individual stated, "Zheng Wei didn't come to my house that night. In fact, we haven't spoken in a long time, let alone arranged for an unexpected visit." Zheng Wei offered his own explanation. He claimed that he had intended to surprise his friend, but upon arriving in Jinshan, realized it was already too late, being past midnight, and decided not to disturb his friend's sleep. Instead, he turned around and left without knocking on the door. The police, however, remembered the other key pieces of evidence, including the blood found in Jinghua's bathroom and the fingerprints and footprints recovered from the scene. After forensic comparison, the prints were confirmed to belong to Zheng Wei. When confronted with this evidence, Zheng Wei continued to defend himself. "I admit I went to Jinghua's place that day, but I definitely didn't kill her. The fingerprints found at the scene were from when Jinghua was weighing herself on a scale. I sat nearby to check the weight display, that's all. As for the bloodstains found in the trunk of the car, a critical piece of incriminating evidence, Zheng Wei took his defense even further. When asked to explain them, he feigned ignorance and brazenly stated, "I can't explain it. Maybe someone is trying to frame me." Despite the mounting evidence, Zheng Wei had explanations for every accusation the police presented. Furthermore, with no body found, he continued to manipulate the narrative in his favor, arguing that the police had no proof of his guilt, and therefore he had nothing to fear. Although Zheng Wei consistently denied wrongdoing and refused to cooperate with the investigation, and despite the lack of a body or definitive cause of death, the police were confident they had enough evidence to prove that the missing Jinghua had been murdered by this man. Prosecutors agreed, asserting that Zheng Wei showed no remorse and demanded the death penalty. At this point in the case, even with the strong suspicion of Zheng Wei's guilt, could he truly be convicted without a body or murder weapon? This marked the first no-body murder trial for both the Taipei City Police Department and the prosecutor's office. It was unprecedented, and any misstep could potentially allow a murderer to walk free. Despite the challenges, prosecutors decided to move forward with charges against Zheng Wei and handed the case over to the court for trial. So, in a case with no body, where the suspect denies all charges, how would the judge rule? Perhaps the most anxious individual at this stage was the lead investigator. While forensic evidence strongly pointed to Zheng Wei as the murderer, the lack of absolute proof, namely Jinghua's body, meant the court had to conduct additional investigations. This time, the focus shifted from the suspect, Zheng Wei, to the victim, Jinghua. A high-level court investigation revealed new insights into Jinghua's past relationships. She had previously dated 2 businessmen. With her first boyfriend, she sold a single-family home in Taipei and mortgaged property worth over 10 million new Taiwan dollars to support his business venture. However, he refused to repay the money, leaving Jinghua deeply disillusioned. Her second boyfriend, who worked in the aviation industry, had debts ranging from 2 to 3 million new Taiwan dollars, which Jinghua ultimately paid off. After these 2 disheartening experiences involving finances, Jinghua decided to avoid financial entanglements in future relationships. Although she did not reject the idea of dating, she became extremely cautious with money. From this, it was clear that Jinghua would never have willingly handed over her financial cards or bank books to Zheng Wei, a mere acquaintance, and allowed him to withdraw money on her behalf. This rendered Zheng Wei's previous testimony to the police meaningless. In June 2003, nearly 2 years after the incident, prosecutors once again charged Zheng Wei with Jinghua's murder based on 3 compelling pieces of evidence. 1. The large amount of blood found by forensic investigators in Jinghua's bathroom and in the car belonging to Li Mai provided sufficient grounds to conclude that Jinghua had been murdered. 2. Blood traces belonging to Jinghua were found in the car that Zheng Wei used on June 14, 2001, Li Mai's vehicle. Prosecutors argued that Zheng Wei's inability to reasonably explain this evidence further implicated him as the killer. 3. In addition to the surveillance footage of Li Mai withdrawing Jinghua's money on June 19, 2001, a recent re-examination of ATM and bank records uncovered a crucial discovery. Surveillance footage showed Zheng Wei himself stealing Jinghua's funds just 3 days after the incident, on June 17, 2001, at 5 p.m. During the first trial, the Taipei District Court delivered its verdict based on the evidence and the most reasonable conclusions, even though the victim's body had not been found. Charged with premeditated murder and robbery, Zheng Wei was sentenced to life imprisonment. However, during the second trial, Zheng Wei employed a new tactic, claiming that Jinghua's blood found in the car was planted by the police. Yet, forensic experts pointed out that when they examined the car, they not only had Li Mai's verbal consent, but also her signed agreement. Moreover, Li Mai was present throughout the inspection, observing the entire process, which was thoroughly recorded on video. There was absolutely no chance of evidence being fabricated. At this point, Zheng Wei was grasping at straws, desperately trying to escape the charges. But his actions only served to anger the judge. The court deemed his statements as lies intended to evade responsibility, further damaging his credibility during the trial. His arrogance reached its peak when he paced around the courtroom, shouting and even threatening the judge, "I will die, and so will you." In this trial, not only was Zheng Wei denied a reduction in his sentence, but his criminal responsibility was increased, and he was sentenced to death. However, after an appeal, the Supreme Court sent the case back for reconsideration. The court noted that Zheng Wei, despite fleeing the country, had voluntarily returned to Taiwan for interrogation after being persuaded by his sister's family. This suggested that his conscience might not have been entirely absent. Ultimately, the court upheld the original life imprisonment sentence, stripped Zheng Wei of his civil rights for life, and spared him the death penalty. In hindsight, it was fortunate that forensic science had advanced. Otherwise, this case might have remained an unsolved tragedy, denying justice for Jinghua. The Jinghua case became a landmark in Taiwan's judicial history, the first where a murder conviction was achieved without the victim's body. Yet, Li Zhengwei, sentenced to life, has never revealed the truth. The whereabouts of Jinghua's body remain a mystery, leaving her family in anguish. Their greatest pain is the unanswered question, where is Jinghua? They long to see their daughter, even if only in a dream, to find some semblance of solace. Strangely, while Jinghua's family has never seen her in their dreams, eerie incidents involving her seem to occur frequently around the investigators. For example, when the Taipei police temporarily impounded Li Mai's car in the station's basement for investigation, guards and officers often reported seeing a woman sitting inside the car late at night. Some even claimed to hear sobbing. These unsettling events ceased only after the car was removed. 2 years after the case, a detective sergeant returned to Jinghua's house to collect images for case documentation. Oddly, the camera he and his colleagues brought malfunctioned as soon as it was taken into the bathroom. Yet, when brought outside, it worked perfectly fine. After switching to a different camera, the same issue occurred. It functioned everywhere but inside the bathroom. To this day, Zhang Jinghua's whereabouts and the strange phenomena surrounding her case remain unexplained. What do you think? Did Taiwan's judicial system deliver a fair and accurate verdict? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.